In this video, we're going to learn about what are commonly called inline elements in HTML. And it's part of your understanding what kind of tags to use, that you should understand what is an inline element and what is a block element. And we'll cover block elements in a different video. But Robbins, in her book, in chapter 5, has this very long list of text level or inline elements. It's a good list, but in actual practice, we only use a really small number of these. And I also wanted to show you in at the WhatWig site, which is our very up-to-date resource for what tags are used for and what they will be used for in the future. They also have a list of text level semantics, they call them. These are the inline elements, such as M. And when you use this site, you can get good definitions and very up-to-date information. And their HTML page that shows all the tags, everything you ever want to know about HTML is, oh, I scrolled past where I wanted to be. Starting with the HTML element and going through head, title, link, meta. This is a really good resource for you. So back to what we're going to learn about. All right, so I'm going to use this simple document. Again, no CSS. I will use a little CSS later on. But what does it look like in the browser? It looks like this. Make sure that's the most current version. So I've just put a paragraph, and there's one link here that goes to my source. And then I'm only going to cover these 5 tags because these are the inline elements we really use all the time. The other elements can be used in specialized cases. I'm going to mention one of those in this video, but basically you're going to use these 5 a lot, and you want to learn how to use them correctly. So I've got this big paragraph, and let me first show you one of the differences between inline and block. So headings and paragraphs are block level elements. They do not stay on the same line. They break out into their own block. So if I were to add a head right in the middle of this line, so I'll make it an H2, all right? And I save and I reload. You'll see that that head just smashed right into the paragraph and broke it into pieces. So headings are block level. They will not stay on the same line inside another element. Okay, so, and that has some repercussions that we'll talk about in a minute too. So let's get rid of that. So let's do them in order. What about a link? So you've already seen links used. Links are the A element. So there's already one in the document that links to the source of this free online book. And you see that right here. It doesn't break onto a new line by itself. It just stays on the same line with the other things that are wrapped up in one single paragraph, one P element, right? So the P is a block level element. Everything in it should go in line with everything inside the P. What if I put an A, a link tag, in the middle of the text I've got in the paragraph? Let's see, I have a link to a French Revolution history page because that's what this text is talking about. So let's say it was the winter of our despair. So I make an A at the beginning, I make an A at the end. Well, it's always nice to be inside the punctuation, so let's do that right. And then inside my A, I have the attribute href that does the work for us, quote, quote, and I paste into the, in between the quotation marks and save and switch to the browser and reload. And here it is, our link that goes to the history page. All right. So illustrating that when you use an A element, it does not break out of the block it's in, it stays in line. All right. So let's look at the others. How about the EM tag? Well, yeah, let's do EM and strong, and then we'll go back to BR. Okay, so EM, what does it do? EM at the beginning, EM at the end. Okay, so EM/EM, call it M for emphasis. That is what it's meant to do, okay? It's meant to be used to emphasize text. So we see it here, and what has it done? It has rendered that text in italics by default. Okay, so most browsers will do that. When you use the M tag, they will render that text in italics. However, it's very important to realize that the purpose of the M tag is not to make italics like a pretty decoration. It is meant to be used for emphasis. So if you did not want to emphasize that particular clause in the paragraph, you shouldn't use M. You should use something else. And I'm going to show you strong, which works the same way. Strong. And then I'll talk about what we would use instead. Okay, so the idea of strong is to make a very bold, strong statement out of that text, all right? So it should be brief. It should never be used for a whole paragraph. It usually shouldn't be used for headings or anything like that. And there's this subtle difference between what is emphasis and what is strong, but again, it's the meaning that you're looking at, not the pretty decoration. So if you wanted this entire paragraph to be in italics, and that is not a good use for M, technically you could use M. You could put an M tag right here after the P, and you could put a closing M tag at the end before the /P, but that is not the right way to do it. The right way to do it is to use CSS, and I know we haven't learned that yet. And I'm just going to grab a little style that I typed before to save time. Okay, so, all right. So I have created a new style, a new custom style. That's what the dot is for. And I'm just going to call it decorated. So this is a class, and the dot makes it a class. And I just named it decorated. That's not anything real in HTML. I just made that up. And I'm going to give it the font style italic. Now, how do I apply that to something in my text? What I do is I go into the opening tag of the element, and I type class equals, and then I type decorated without the dot and close the quote. All right, so class is an attribute name, and decorated is an attribute value. And when I save this, save, now my entire paragraph is italic. And if I wanted the entire paragraph to be in italic as a look, right? Because I can't really emphasize an entire paragraph, right? So the technically correct thing to do with HTML is do not use the M tags as a decoration. Instead, to decorate, use styles, use CSS. Now, I'm going to take that class off, go back, show you that, sure enough, the italics is gone. And I'm actually going to skip, I didn't do BR yet, I know, I'll come back to that. I'm going to skip ahead to the span tag because span is also a really useful inline tag. It won't break things apart, and it is useful for things like this where you want to decorate, you want to make things look a certain way, but you are not actually emphasizing or making them stand out in terms of their meaning, right? It's just more of a design decision. So I've put the span tag around 2 lines, and I'm first going to save and reload to show you that right now that didn't do anything at all, okay? I lost which one. Belief and incredulity, right? So there. Maybe it would be a little easier for us if I shorten that up. There we go. All right, so belief and incredulity didn't change the way they looked at all, but what I'll do is I will add the same class the same way I previously added it, decorated, and close my quotes for sure, and save and reload. And now you see that my same class was applied just to those two lines, right? So that is what span is for. Span is really useful for applying decoration, design, or appearance in line without breaking anything apart. I could also add a color, for example, to that same style. All right, so save, reload, and what has happened now to belief and incredulity? It is now in a kind of lilac purple color, which is indicated by this hexadecimal code in my style. So span can be used to apply a lot of different styles. I could also change the size just of that, let's say 150%, save, reload, right? Suddenly those two lines of text became larger because I applied a style. If I remove the class, keeping span doesn't do that by itself. Save, reload, nothing, right? So the style is not on there, you don't see anything. So M and strong are meant to apply to what the content means and what it's saying. If you're not talking about what the content means, then you're only designing or decorating. In that case, use span, not M, and not strong. Okay, the A tag, of course, we'll talk more about links in another video. So now let's wrap up with BR. BR is for break. We've looked at that a little bit before, but because I've got this particular paragraph, this is the way it came from the site where I got it. It was split up like this as if it were poetry. But as I think you've learned before, if I look at that in the browser, it never breaks up that way unless I add some tag. Now, in this case, if I did want it to be marked up like poetry, breaking at the end of each clause where there's a comma, I could stick in a lot of BRs. I'm pasting. And that would render it the way I have typed it here. And in this case, maybe you'd like it to look that way. Maybe you would like it to sort of simulate poetry. All right? Maybe you'd want to go down and do it to all the other lines as well, right? Despair. Okay? But BR should be used only when the line must break there. So poetry is one use of BR, and street addresses, at the end of the name, at the end of the street, at the end of the city and state, when you want things to be on single lines with no space after the line, between that line and the next line, poetry and addresses are pretty much it for the BR tag. So one last thing in this item, and that is, well, when we look at it here, okay, you know that in magazine articles and in books, usually when we refer to the title of a book, a magazine, a TV show, usually it is rendered in italics. So is the title a good place to use M? No, it is not, because we're not emphasizing a title. That again is a stylistic thing. But what's actually correct in HTML5, this wasn't correct before HTML5, but now it is, the inline tag cite, C-I-T-E, for any kind of title of a movie, a book, a TV show, a poem, any kind of title that you would normally see in italics, we should now enclose that title with cite tags. Okay, so I am going to save and reload, and you'll see what most browsers do once you've applied cite is they do render it in italics. Okay, but again, the point is not the italics. The point is actually to specify this is a title. And there aren't different tags for different kinds of works, okay? So movies, books, magazines, they all use the same tag site. So that is our quick overview of inline tags that are really, really commonly used.